Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Tips, Tricks, and Triumphs Tuesday. So it's a really windy day here in Arizona where I am. It's warm. It's in the 70s, but the wind is really blowing. So, if this is your first time listening, I'm a hypnotherapist, a life coach, an NLP practitioner, and a Reiki master. But I like to call myself a change adventure navigator because I love guiding people through obstacles and adversity to find their path, purpose, and peace, and hopefully a little soulfire wisdom along the way. So today for tips, tricks, and triumphs Tuesday, I have a couple of tips and a triumph. Um, I got my first COVID vaccination last Wednesday, and this isn't scientific or anything. This is just my own intuition and experience, but I did have it kind of get a little scientific backup from an epidemiologist I know and a nurse. So, two tips when you get your vaccination to uh, help with lessening the side effects afterwards is one, drink lots of water. And I'll tell you in a minute why. And the other one is try as much as you can to relax your muscles. And this may be one you know already from getting other vaccinations. But if you can relax your muscles in your arm that you're getting the vaccination, you're going to be less sore afterwards. And the drinking the water is because the vaccine itself is uh, it's encased in a bunch of additives and stuff to get it into our system. And so sometimes it's those things that actually cause our body to react because they're things that are not supposed to be in our body. So the more water you drink afterwards, the quicker those additives are going to get out of your system. So my triumph is that I have not had a printer at home for almost 8 months. I, shut off my printer and packed it when I moved last July. And although I got it in September, my device avoidance kind of made me just leave it in the box and not set it up because I thought, it would take time and be difficult and all that. But last week, I kind of came to a tipping point when I went to UPS to print one page and they charged me $269. So I decided I had to get that printer out and set it up. And it took me 45 minutes and it wasn't difficult. And now I have a printer. So we have a great show planned for today. My guest is Steven Werner, and he's a business coach, a speaker, and an event creator. 6 years ago, he left his corporate job and decided he wanted to do events and public speaking. And since then, he's held 63 sold out events for himself and clients, built more than 138 different presentations, spoken on more than 200 live and virtual stages, including Harvard's Business Summit on Marketing, Influence, and Conversion. And he likes to help coaches, influencers, and small businesses to grow through webinars and one-to-many presentations and events. And I connected with Steve almost 6 years ago when I started getting these persistent messages in my LinkedIn messaging, and I ignored them. First, I ignored them because it was talking about public speaking. And my fear of public speaking kind of made me say, oh no. And then it was asking me if I wanted to participate in an event at the Harvard Faculty Club. And I'll have to say, I thought it was a scam. So that was part of why I ignored his messages. But he kept sending them, and it pricked my interest. And so finally I followed up and asked some questions. And I ended up going to the Symposium for Personal Development that he put on at the Harvard Faculty Club. And I'll have to say, I'm very happy I went. It actually was a life-changing experience. And so I'm happy to introduce Steve now. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Kate? Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. I started noticing his 10 minutes at 10, a little motivational things that he does every morning. And I hadn't totally kept up with everything he was doing, but it got my attention. And so here he is.
Thanks. Yeah, the 10 to 10 was it started actually on my birthday this year. One of my friends was having a really hard time, and they were just like, you need to share what you're sharing with me with everybody. And I was like, oh, I can totally do that on Facebook. I used to do quite a bit of Facebook Lives, but I kind of got out of doing them. So started holding them every morning at 10 and just giving little tips of motivation and things that I used to become successful over the last like 6.5 years now. And the feedback was really good. People really liked them.
I thought they were good, and I even sent the link to my son because I thought they were really motivating, and I thought maybe he would listen to you more than he'd listen to me. So to start out with the questions, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your background and what led you to your current path, what you're doing now?
Sure. So this will be really interesting because you actually came to the third event that I ever held. And it was interesting hearing your thoughts on it. I know we've talked a little bit about it. So in 2013, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and at the time I was working as a manager at Vail Resorts, and I knew I really wanted to get involved in the event space. Like I left the Tony Robbins event with like the idea of maybe doing that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, who in here has had a silly idea at some point in their life and they're like, I can totally do that. And I think it took a little bit over a year before I finally decided, like, okay, I am going to do this. I'm going to try this. And so I moved to Las Vegas, because that's what I thought the event capital of the world was. I thought that if you're going to hold live events, you have to move to Las Vegas. So I moved to Las Vegas. I incorporated, and I signed a contract for the largest event space that I could find at a hotel, which was Treasure Island, for 1,500 people, and went out and proceeded to spend over $30,000 out of savings. Like liquidated my 401k, all of that, and didn't hold an event because nobody bought a ticket. So that was event number one. Didn't go anywhere near as planned. Event number two actually went a lot better. I learned some stuff, read a whole bunch of books, got involved in a program called Butts in Seats, which was by Dan Kennedy, direct marketing guy. Held an event at South Point Casino for 80 people. And that one went really well. That was for dentists. But that wasn't really what I was like. I want to hold like more like a Tony Robbins style event, which is where I actually came up with the idea for the event you attended, which was at Harvard. I thought, well, I'll attract people because at the time I didn't understand nearly as much as I do now about marketing, but they kept saying like, focus on who you want at the event. And I was like, well, who do I want at the event? I want people who want to like be excited about life. So we named it the Symposium for Personal Development. And I mean, I'm so glad that you came. I've talked to so many of the people over the years who came to that event, and it seems like I somehow attracted the best people in the world because everybody really loved the event. Everybody got a ton out of it. It was crazy to me to talk to as how many people like still stay in touch from that event.
Yeah.
We had 34 people, if I remember correctly, at that event. And I was super nervous about it. Just because I didn't know how any of it was going to go or how it was going to be received. I mean, the event that I held before that was for dentists, which was different because I could just say it's dentists. And I wasn't speaking at that event. I just had other speakers. From those events, though, like I just kept holding events. I just kept doing it. And then I ended up, like, I learned that you have to sell something on the back end, which led to me building a Facebook ads agency. I ran Facebook ads for 3 years for different companies that I brought in through live events. I would hold a live event in Chicago, or I'd hold a live event in LA, 20 to 30 people, and then sell Facebook ads. From that, though, I got so good at doing events that people started hiring me for events, which led to me speaking on a lot of stages, which was great. It's really interesting looking back at it now, at like how things grew over the years.
Yeah, it was interesting to me to see how your events changed and grew, because I went in 2016, 2017, and 2018. And each year you had a little bit different as far as, you know, what the event was and what you were doing, even though it was the same, you know, same place. And
those events were some of my favorites. I mean, I held events across. So I held the personal development event. Then I held ones for dentists. Then I held ones for chiropractors. And then I held ones for nutritionists. I held ones for holistic health at one point, plastic surgery. I held a plastic surgery event in Miami, which was perfect.
Wow.
We did, but then we also started doing just like general marketing events, because those would fill up. Those were actually easier to fill. There are so many different events, and then getting invited to speak on other people's stages or doing sponsorship at other events really led, like, the more I got involved with it, the more I learned, and the way my events definitely grew and changed. I'm in Phoenix right now. I came here to hold a live event last year for a group of doctors hired me to hold an event for them so that they could do medical device sales. And then COVID hit, which led me to pivoting back onto online stuff. But it's been a really fun trip, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I thought I was good at speaking when I started, but I actually went back for an event and looked at the very first presentation I did, which I still have a video from, and like how I've changed over the years. It's been a really fun journey for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know you were interested in speaking until the third event because you didn't. You just kept quiet and had us speak. So
Well, I mean, I was interested in speaking. I spoke at some of the other events, but for those events, the first two Harvard events that you came to, um, I didn't think that like the whole point was to put the spotlight on you guys and to give you, a speaker reel and show you speaking. And I thought, I don't want to take time. I would rather, I mean, I think the first event, everybody got 20 minutes, and the second event, everybody got 30 or 40. I didn't want to take time from you guys at all. And it was such a good way for everybody to bond and get to know each other. Those events were so good.
yeah. So what has been your greatest challenge in getting through the past year with the COVID-19 and all that's happened?
Um, that's a good question. So I mean, when COVID happened, we I had 3 events planned for the fall. No, I'm sorry. I had 2 events planned for the fall, and I had 1 event planned for the spring. And I was contracted at the time by this group of doctors. So the doctors and I ended our relationship. We ended on good terms. Um, but that definitely hurt income wise. Then I had to refund the people that had events in the fall, which that was a lot of money leaving my bank account for sure. So that was like the start of challenging times. But I thought it was going to go away faster than it did. I figured it would just blow over. I figured it would not be what it was. So I didn't do anything for March, April, or May. I just pretty much, I was like, I'll just, read some books. Um, so when I did decide, I I don't really love the online space. I like live events. I like meeting people in person. I like talking in person. Um, Although I know quite a bit about digital marketing. So in May, I decided, I should probably do something. So I held 8 different challenges. Uh, they were all based on how to tell your story or how to sell from stage, or how to build a presentation, different things around that. Um, 2 of them did very well. The rest of them, one failed miserably, and the rest broke even. Um, but it was a lot of work to put all of those together and to start doing that. And then we started holding webinars and started helping people with webinars in July. And I didn't want to move to virtual events. I'm not a fan of them, and I threw stones at them for years. So I didn't think it would be very integrity based to just suddenly be like, hey, and you should do a virtual event. So we didn't. Just focused on webinars, and that went really well. But getting that going and moving into that space was definitely challenging. Just kind of finding my voice and moving things around. Because when you're active in live events, I don't want to say it's a completely different skill set, but it's a different skill set to fill live events. I mean, I could throw a meetup group together and go and meet 10 or 15 people and have fun with them, and then build a live event over time. It just took a lot of mindset shifting, I think. That, and I'm pretty sociable. I like people, and suddenly being, in front of a computer 10 hours a day, it was not very exciting. So those would probably be the 2 biggest challenges.
Okay, so one thing you say
Mhm.
is that you teach entrepreneurs and coaches, and that is that you teach people to sell without being pushy.
Mhm.
So, what's the difference between persistence and being pushy, and why?
Sure. It's actually really funny that you called out to me about the messages that I sent you on LinkedIn and the emails. So when I first started marketing, I didn't know any better. I just thought you sent the same email, and if you just kept sending it, people would buy. And I mean, that did happen for me, but it definitely was not the ideal way to do it. Um, Nowadays, what I focus on is storytelling. If you tell a good story, so I'll give two examples that I think will clarify this. If I tell you something, if I say, you know, webinars are the way to go. You should definitely be doing webinars. Right away, our brain, especially in the Western world, wants to say, nope, I'm not sure if that's right for me. We start questioning it, and we want to disagree. In the Western world, nothing is more important than disagreeing and showing that we have something that we agree with. And we love to disagree and make our point of view. But if I tell a story, if I tell a great story about how I took an online coach who was struggling with Facebook ads and trying to be everywhere on Facebook and had her do a webinar where she told great stories and got people to lean in. And at the end just said, hey, if this is a good fit for you, I'd love to talk with you. And we did $80,000 in sales. People lean in because that's a story about somebody else. When you tell a story, what happens 9 times out of 10 is that you become the protagonist in the story, whether you mean to or not. That's what, instead of asking questions and saying, that's for me, that's not for me, we say, how would I react in that situation? And we lean in. So storytelling is the short answer to the question.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I actually agree with you about selling without being pushy, but you still do have to be persistent. And I don't know if you know this, if you did know this, you probably didn't remember. But before I was a coach, I was a sales and marketing consultant. And well, I got into sales basically because somebody told me I couldn't do it. And then what I had a couple of businesses before that. So I kind of knew that I could sell, but I didn't fit the stereotype. And what I discovered my superpowers were basically were that I didn't fit the stereotype and that I was persistent without being pushy or without what people perceived as being pushy.
Well, that's, I mean, nobody likes being pushed into doing something. You can, I mean, what probably made you really successful is you followed up authentically, right? You have a nice conversation. If you follow up, so if you take good notes, if you tell a story and somebody contacts you or leans in at all, take notes as to why, and then follow up with them around why. Tell a good, like, this is when I write an email sequence now, we tell stories in each email. And for those of you who think immediately we're like, I don't want to tell long stories, they can be 3 sentences, like 3 to 4 sentences around something that is important to the reader. What are their biggest pain points? And what's a short story that you can tell that overcomes it or lets them know that you at least understand their pain? That's a great way to follow up. But if you do have a conversation with somebody, you have to make them an offer. An offer is different from trying to strong arm somebody into buying something. When you find yourself trying to convince, that's when it doesn't feel good for you, and it definitely doesn't feel good for them. That's the like salesy, pushy, scammy, like stuff that doesn't feel good. If instead you say, hey, you said you were struggling with losing weight. You said you were really struggling with the food that you eat. Because you said that, the diet plan that I have that works really well and is really easy to follow would be a great fit for you. If they say no, you can ask why, but you shouldn't immediately go into being pushy. Well, but this is perfect. This is exactly what you need, because all that does is make the person move away harder. it's much better to listen to people and have a conversation. But I think people are really scared about that. Like they don't understand.
Well, that's actually why people are scared. They're scared to be pushed. They're scared of that stereotypical salesperson who's gonna do some flim flam stuff and make them buy something they don't want. And so that's why that was my superpower, because they didn't see me that way. So I got to, give the sales pitch that the other guy that fit the stereotype didn't get to give.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what is the best way to grow your business that you've discovered?
I mean, I love doing Facebook Lives. I think Facebook Lives work well. They worked better 2 years ago. I mean, Facebook has definitely messed with the algorithm a lot. I think people are moving off of Facebook. That could be discussed endlessly. I think speaking at live events, I mean, there's right now, of course, there's no live events, but when they come back, every town, every city has hundreds of live events. Some of them you can go speak at for free. Some of them you'll have to sponsor. But if you get in front of an audience, you are immediately seen. I'm holding up a finger, but I'm too small. You're immediately seen as an authority in that space, and people will listen to you just because you're on stage. My whole program is teaching people how to speak from stage. Tell a good story, get people to lean in. Don't try to teach too much. Teaching is the number one way that you will put people to sleep and that you'll have people not interested in what you do. If instead you tell stories, you build open loops, you build some anticipation, you make a fun, funny, engaging presentation, people will remember you. And if there's 20 people in a room, at least 5 of them are going to come up and talk to you afterwards. And the fact that public speaking is everyone's biggest fear, or at least that's listed as one of them, right? I don't know whether it is or not, but I think it is. I think a lot of people are scared. They're like, I would love to do a coffee meeting, but I don't want to get up in front of 20 or 30 people. Go to Toastmasters, hire me, or just go do it. If you go do it, you'll realize that it's nowhere near as scary as you think it is. That's my thoughts.
The first time it is, but after that.
Yeah, I mean it's like anything else that you don't know how to do, right? I mean, when you don't know how to do something, and people's real fear is they're going to be judged by people. The people in the audience are going to judge me. One of the reasons that the Harvard events were so good, we spent the first, I think, 30 minutes or an hour getting to know each other, talking a little bit. And then people in the audience are your friends. And then when you get up and speak, I mean, if the first 2 or 3 people might have been a little bit harder for them, but once you know the people, because we went around and did feedback and did Q&A, and then the people in the audience become your friends, and you're not nervous about presenting. Like the nerves subside a little bit because they're people who are supporting you instead of people who are, pushing against you. If you speak in front of a small group somewhere, that's usually what happens. You'll learn very quickly. And once you do it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, it's no longer scary. Instead, it's actually really fun and engaging, and you know that you're going to get seen as an authority. I think it actually is more exciting. That's my take on it. I love doing it.
So, what makes an effective webinar? What makes them good or not good?
Sure. I'll tell a story because I think that will help. If you're listening to this, I want you to think for a second, and I want you to think back to high school or college, and I want you to remember your favorite teacher. You have them? Okay. Now I want you to go and I want you to shift, and I want you to think about your least favorite teacher or teachers. Chances are that you would walk into their classroom, you would sit down, they would be standing at the board lecturing right away. They'd be writing notes. They'd probably be monotone. They probably didn't tell stories, even if they were an English teacher. If you were like me, that put you to sleep, or you passed notes, or you ran out the back door. On a webinar, most people, or when you're speaking in public, they're not that different. Most people make it an ego-based assumption that they need to provide as much information as possible. Because if I provide a ton of information, they'll see me as an authority, I'll be valuable, and they'll like me. That's what our like ego subconscious starts telling us. That's not true at all. That's what makes the boring, non-fun teacher from high school boring and non-fun. They're trying to teach as much as possible. The other thing that happens is our brain, when we process information, slows down and makes us tired, makes us like it's a computer, right? You are at an 8, 9, or 10 in whatever your specialty is. The people that you're talking to are at a 1 or 2. They want to learn, but you can't get them to an 8, 9, or 10. Instead, try to move them up one level, just a little bit. Get them one big aha. The big aha in all of this is that engagement, being funny, having fun with people is way more important than teaching them a ton of stuff. Teach them one big aha that gets them to lean in and come talk to you when you get off stage or you get done with the webinar. If you do that, you will end up with sales. We had a webinar that we did a week and a half ago. It wasn't mine, it was a client's. The webinar itself, she closed a handful of people on the webinar. But through follow-up and having conversations, because people said, dude, I really resonated. I want to have a conversation. Let's talk a little bit. She closed 4 times the amount that she closed on the webinar because people liked her. They knew, like, and trusted her. The main thing, so this is my favorite quote. I was going to bring this up earlier, but it's more poignant now. It has to do with sales and comes from Zig Ziglar. And he says, sales is nothing more than certainty and excitement about what you sell to the other person. In sales, we all think, and tell me what you think of this, Kate. I would love your thoughts. Like, we all think people are going to buy because I convinced them to buy. That's not true at all. If you are sold on what you sell, people are looking for somebody that they know, like, and trust to solve their problem. They don't want to know everything about what you do. They want to know that they can trust you and that you'll take care of it. And that's all sales is.
Yes. Actually, yeah.
So when you're speaking on stage, it's not about trying to convince them of anything. It's about having fun with them, getting them to know, like, and trust you, and then they'll come talk to you, and you can comfortably sell them by saying, what resonated with you from my talk? What'd you like? And you'll have a little conversation. You say, well, would you like to work with me? I can take you further down whatever road you're going. I've worked with a lot of financial planners lately, and it's like, people don't care about all the back end numbers and like that. Most people hate spreadsheets. They want to know, what they want to know is, you know what you're doing and I can trust you.
Yes.
9 times out of 10.
I used to say that I didn't sell things to people, that I helped them to buy.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. That's,
Yeah.
when you went, you and I remember when you went to, like, department stores to buy stuff, right? The shop, like, you when you used to go to a department store, the sales associate would find clothes for you that would look good on you. That was their job. Here, you should try this. This color works well for you. Their job was to help you, which is exactly what you just pointed to. Like, if you're talking the most in a sales conversation, you're not going to sell because you're pushing.
Yeah, you've gotta listen to them. So, what would you say is the biggest thing that people do wrong in sales or webinars, presentations?
Teaching, talking too much. If you're using slides, you should never have more than 8 words on a slide. See that one quite a bit. Not using inclusive language. So we've been talking. I've asked at least probably 50 questions of, does that make sense to you? How would you respond to that? Like, those are questions that engage the listener. In a one-on-one sales conversation, which if you're in business, you're probably decent at. Maybe you're okay at, right? In one-on-one, I'm asking a question and I'm listening. When you're speaking from stage or on a webinar, you can't do that because I can't interact with the whole audience. But what I can do is ask inclusive questions. How does that feel for you? Does that make sense? You guys seeing how you could use this in your business? Those are just a few. It
Yeah.
gets the person involved. The other thing that I think a lot of people miss out is just being funny. Like they're too worried about sounding professional. Don't sound professional. Nobody wants the slick, polished person. They want the fun, engaging person that they see being a couple steps ahead of where they are.
Well, with a caveat, be funny if you're funny. If that isn't something that you do, be you. Be what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
Be authentic more than be funny. If you can be funny, be funny. But I've seen some people try to be funny that
Aren't.
and that doesn't work.
That is true. I mean, I think everybody can tell a joke or put a funny slide up.
Well, it's like the joke from the little kid that doesn't understand humor yet.
That's probably true.
So, what should you do if you have a presentation to give and you're just totally at a loss for where to start?
Yeah, I get that question quite a bit. So the first thing is dumb it way, way down. Get a whiteboard and like figure out what you want them, what one big aha precludes what you sell. So I sell how to build a presentation. The big aha is that it's not about teaching, it's about engagement. How do you get your audience to engage with you? That's the big aha. If you get that, then the next question is, well, how do I do that? Well, you need to build an engaging presentation that doesn't teach, but is engaging. If you're working on your presentation, figure out what the big aha is, and then 3 very lightweight teaching points that support that. When I say lightweight, you want to think at like a 3rd grade level, because what your 3rd grade level is somebody else's college level. You have to take it way back. You're not trying to get them to an 8, 9, or 10, which is where you are. You're trying to get them up 1 level. They're at a 1, 2, or 3. You're trying to move them 1 level. Like if you can remember that, then build stories. For each teaching point should have a story. Your main idea should have a story, which should be backed up by your journey. Does that make sense?
That's good advice. So why are webinars the best place to start when you're building a business, even if you're not going to do webinars or you don't want to do webinars?
Sure. So even if you don't want to give a presentation, if you take the time to write the presentation, you're going to end up with somewhere between 4 and 5 stories about you and about your business and how you helped people, which will always come in handy. I've probably told 5 stories on here that I have a whole deck. Like I keep stories because I believe in stories so much. I have a deck that I keep on my desk. When I hear a story, I write it down and then I go over it for a couple of days. And then I have a whole catalog in my head. If you write a webinar or a presentation, even if you never give it, you'll have your stories, you'll have a clear offer, which Kate, you probably have seen this. Like how many people in sales, coaches, consultants, any kind of sale, and you get to like, they just don't have clarity around what they're offering. They try to make the offer and it takes them 5 minutes to describe what they do. And you're still not 100% sure what the outcome is. On a webinar or through a presentation on stage, you have to have a clear outcome that you're offering people. Writing the presentation, even if you never give it, will give you a very clear offer. And it will give you a way to talk about the offer to get people to raise their hand and say, I'm interested in that. The last piece is I recommend you have at least 5 testimonials in your presentation. Usually I try to get 15 or 20. if you have those testimonials, even if you don't do the presentation, you'll still have them. One of the easiest ways to follow up with somebody, if you've had a sales conversation and they're thinking about it, is say, hey, I just wanted to send you this short case study from my client, Kate. Here you go, check it out. And it's a testimonial that is a story of somebody who had problems similar to theirs, who you helped solve, and now is successful in whatever that area is. It's one of the easiest ways to show them your authority without telling them a thing and get them to move forward with you. And you'll have those if you build your presentation.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea. What is most rewarding for you personally about what you do?
I mean, I love to see people have success. That's like, I mean, we did that webinar that I was talking about. I mean, I can talk about a couple of them. The one that we did 2 weeks ago, lady was really stressed out about whether or not she would be able to sell online. She also sold through a lot of live events. She wasn't necessarily speaking on stage. She went to a lot of networking events, and she was very nervous about doing a webinar. I want to say we generated more than $20,000 in sales with no ad spend through a presentation. Like that makes me so excited for her. Another person that we worked with, she had been spending money on ads, and her webinar was doing okay, but it wasn't doing great. Through working with me, we were able to double the amount of people she was able to work with. Not like she's excited about money, but her main driver isn't money. It's changing people's lives. She helps women over 55 lose weight. She's just seen so many people over 55 put on a lot of weight. So she literally helps them because there's a very specific need there, very specific methodology behind it as well. So her goal is to help more women live longer. And like for her, it was so exciting to see her reach more people because that's her main driver. I love seeing people be successful and like get over their fear of speaking, tell their story better, because everyone has a great story. It's so much fun to see that and see how that changes people's lives.
So the next question is kind of off topic, but I've been asking all of my guests this for a while now. So what has surprised you most about life so far?
That's a fun question. I like that. What has surprised me most about life? I think probably that if you would have asked me when I was 5 or 6 where I would be, I probably would have given you some stratospheric answer. I mean, at one time I wanted to be an astronaut. One time I wanted to be a race car driver. In high school and junior high, I would have probably given you, I did say I wanted to own my own business for sure. But the fact that I feel like I have always been curious about stuff and always been able to figure out a new way or a more fun way or maybe a more challenging way of doing things, but I've been successful at it. It's surprising to me, I think, how far I've taken that. And although it is different than the answer I would have given you, I think it's probably better. I don't know if that's a very esoteric, like.
So what has surprised you then is that you were able to go farther than you thought you would?
I think the ways that I've done it, I think the ways that I've done it is what's surprising to me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to like think back. I mean, when I was in college, I owned a bunch of real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was before anyone owned real estate. It was 2002, 2003. I just went out and started buying properties, and everyone told me how you wouldn't. I remember my college professor sat me down because I had him read the book because I respected his opinion, and he was like, this will never work. If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. A year later, when I owned more than 20 properties, he like took me out to dinner and was like, how did you do that? How can I do that? I think that kind of stuff, like, it surprises me and it doesn't, because I always knew I would be successful. But it surprised me how I got there, I guess. That would be the answer.
Okay, well.
I mean, serendipity and curiosity, and life is always surprising. Like, you never know what's around the next corner or who you're going to meet. Like, I love that stuff. I love like, what's in the future? Where am I going to go? Who am I going to see? What am I going to do?
Okay. So we're getting close to the end of the time, but if you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
It would be to stand in whatever you believe is right, and to shout from the top of the hill about it. Like, it goes back to that Zig Ziglar quote, but it really, like, the universe pays attention. And I think the reason I wear a clarity hat and what I tell everybody is, like, when you start talking about what you believe to be true, people will stand up and listen. Like, they will take notice. And at some level, everybody wants to be told what to do by somebody else. All of us at some level, we're all always looking for something. So when you start preaching what you believe to be true, and preaching might not be the wrong word, but when you stand up and start speaking what you feel in your heart you should be talking about, and you take a stand on something, people will listen. You will be polarizing. You'll attract people who love your message, and maybe you won't anger people. I don't think I anger anybody, but there are definitely people who are like, that's not for me. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's when the universe will see that and reward you for moving in a direction. I really believe that. And I think that's probably, if nothing else, like, that's why I love speaking on stage. You get to tell your story. You get to talk about what you feel passionate about. And you will attract the right people, and you will not attract the wrong people. They'll move away from you, which is exactly what you want.
You'll attract those that need to hear your message. So, yes, definitely. So, if people want to find out more about what you do and, need help with their business, how would they contact you?
The easiest way is through Facebook Messenger. This is my private Facebook profile. I mean, it's public, but this is my personal Facebook. Reach out through Messenger. I'm always open to have a conversation. I'll send you an email. We can do that. But honestly, Facebook Messenger works the best. Love to hear from you. You can also visit my website. It's stevenphillipwerner.com. I have a YouTube channel with more than, I think we're over 200 videos now, talking about telling stories and webinars. I have a podcast. Always looking for people to be on the podcast. It's Grow Your Impact, Income, and Influence. You can also get to that through Facebook. It is listed in my profile.
Okay. And if you don't remember any of that, you can go to the radio website, click on guests, and scroll down to Steven's name, and at least a couple of those ways will be listed there. So thank you for being on today. I know that a lot of people do need help with their business, especially now that we've had to be more creative. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. I have been, I've been kind of impressed by how I've seen you grow and how passionate you've been about it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I love what I do, and I'm glad that we stayed in touch. I'm glad that you came to that first event at Harvard. That's awesome.
Yes. So we have another great show planned for next week. Next week, my guest will be Victoria Marie Gallagher. And she is a hypnotherapist like me, but she just released a book, Manifesting Your Soulmate. And she'll be talking to us about her book and about how to manifest your soulmate. So, I mean, who if you don't already have that person, who doesn't want to do that? So join us next Tuesday, March 16th, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And I have a little quote related to today's show to share with you, to take with you through your week. That is, most of us don't aim too high and miss. Most of us aim too low and hit. And that's by Bob Moad. And it's actually one of my favorite quotes. So have a good week. And I'm just going to say bye for now. And thank you again, Steve.
No problem. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
For listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.